Albus Dumbledore on the Wizard and the Hopping Pot. A kind old wizard decides to teach his hard-hearted son a lesson by giving him a taste of the local smuggler's misery. The young wizard's conscience awakes, and he agrees to use his magic for the benefit of his non-magical neighbors. A simple and heart-warming fable, one might think, in which case one would reveal oneself to be an innocent nincompoop. A pro-Muggle story showing a Muggle-loving father as a superior in a magic to a Muggle-hating son. It is nothing short of amazing that any copies of the original version of this tale survived the flames to which they were so often consigned. Beedle was somewhat out of step with his times in preaching a message of brotherly love for Muggles. The persecution of witches and wizards was gathering pace all over Europe in the early 15th century. Many in the magical community felt, and with good reason, that offering to cast a spell on the Muggle next door's sickly pig was tantamount to volunteering to fetch the firewood for one's son's funeral pyre. "Let the Muggles manage without us," was the cry, as the wizards drew further and further apart from their non-magical brethren, culminating with the institution of the International Statute of Wizarding. Secrecy in 1689, when wizardkind voluntarily went underground. Children being children, however, the grotesque hopping pot had taken hold of their imaginations. The solution was to jettison the pro-Muggle moral but keep the warty cauldron. So by the middle of the 16th century, a different version of the tale was in wide circulation among wizarding families. In the revisited story, the hopping pot protects an innocent wizard from his torch-bearing, pitchfork-tooting neighbors by chasing them away from the wizard's cottage, catching them and swallowing them whole. At the end of the story, by which time the pot has consumed most of his neighbors, the wizard gains a promise from the few remaining villagers that he will be left in peace to practice magic. In return, he instructs the pot to render up its victims, who are duly burped out of its depths, slightly mangled. To this day, some wizarding children are only told the revisited version of the story by their generally anti-Muggle parents, and the original, if and when they ever read it, comes as a great surprise. As I have already hinted, however, its pro-Muggle sentiment was not the only reason that the wizard and the hopping pot attracted anger. As the witch hunts grew even fiercer, wizarding families began to live double lives, using charms of concealment to protect themselves and their families. By the 17th century, any witch or wizard who chose to fraternize with Muggles became suspect, even an outcast in his or her own community. Among the many insults hurled at pro-Muggle witches and wizards, such fruity epithets as mud-wallower, dung-licker, and scum-sucker date from his period, was the charge of having weak or inferior magic. Influential wizards of the day, such as Brutus Malfoy, editor of Warlock at War, an anti-Muggle periodical, perpetuated the stereotype that a Muggle lover was about as magical as a Squib. In 1675, Brutus wrote, "This we might state with certainty. Any wizard who shows fondness for the society of Muggles is of low intelligence, with magic so feeble and pitiful that he can only feel himself superior if surrounded by Muggle pigmen. Nothing is a surer sign of weak magic than a weakness for a non-magical company." This prejudice eventually died out in the face of overwhelming evidence that some of the world's most brilliant wizards were, to use the common phrase, Muggle lovers. The final objection to the wizard and the hopping pot remains alive in certain quarters today. It was summed up best, perhaps, by Beatrix Bloxham, author of the infamous Toadstool Tales. Mr. Bloxham believed that the tales of Beedle the Bard were damaging to children because of what she called their unhealthy preoccupation with the most horrid subjects such as death, disease, bloodshed, wicked magic, unwholesome characters, and bodily effusions and eruptions of the most disgusting kind. Mr. Bloxham took a variety of old stories, including several of Beetles, and rewrote them according to her ideals, which she expressed as filling the pure minds of our little angels with healthy, happy thoughts, keeping their sweet slumber free of wicked dreams, and protecting the precious flower of their innocence. The final paragraph of Mr. Bloxham's pure and precious reworking of The Wizard and the Hopping Pot reads, "Then the little golden pot danced with delight, hoppity hoppity hop, on its tiny rosy toes. Wee Wilkins had cured all the dollies of their poorly tombstones, and the little pot was so happy that it filled up with sweeties for Wee Wilkins and the dollies. But don't forget to brush your teeth, Pegs," cried the pot. And Wee Wilkins kissed and hugged the hoppity pot and promised it always to help the dollies, and never to be an old grumpy wumpins again. Mr. Bloxham's tale has met the same response from a generation of wizarding children, uncontrollable retching, followed by an immediate demand to have the book taken from them and mashed into pulp.